Welcome into Inside LAFC podcast. We are live on LAFC YouTube and LAFC Facebook and LAFC Twitter X and LAFC Instagram. So you can tune in anywhere, anytime, every Monday, 12:30 Pacific time, 4:30 early Tuesday morning in Korea. I am Max Bretos. There's Brian Dunseth. How's it going, Dunny?
Maxie, we're starting the playoffs. It's hot and heavy. Got some of the results that we expected. Maybe some of the teams pushed a little bit further to the limit than they expected, but I'm excited for this time of year. The weather's changing, a little bit cooler. The atmosphere is intense, and everything that we've come to expect that MLS can throw to us so far we've seen in the first couple of days.
We're also doing nice earth tones today. That's very nice. I like it. A little different because I always come in hot with the black, mixing up a little bit. We welcome you to get into the comment section, leave your questions, your concerns, whatever you want. We will answer the questions. We know they come in thick and fast. Dunny's here too, so he can help us with that. And we invite you to like the video, subscribe to the channel so we can grow even more. And we appreciate you, the loyal listeners, the new listeners from all over the world. We know you're tuning in. There we go. People are coming in. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you. Go Dodgers. Yes. LAFC is going to go head-to-head with the Dodgers. Game 3 tonight. LAFC play Wednesday. That potentially could be game 5, which I imagine we will have a game 5. We'll, because it's already 1-1 against the Toronto Blue Jays. So there'll be some synergy, but it is certainly a Dodger town. And Sunday was exceptional, Dunny. I mean, we'll get into what LAFC, so people are tuning in. If you're new to the MLS Cup playoffs, it is a little splintered. They will honor the international break in the second and a half week of November. And then they'll pick things up again. So it is a bit of a marathon. But Sunday, 3 games, fantastic. I'm into it. We will get into all those ramifications. LAFC will play Wednesday, so we have a lot to look forward to. By the way, how do you view the play? I'm okay with the format. The only thing I have an issue, I don't have an issue, but it's a reality, is breaking for the international break. But you have to do that. I like the best of 3. I think it protects the higher seeds a little bit more than if it was just a single game. And this year, I think it feels like we're more into the rhythm than we were when they came up with this format a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think outside of the play-in game where Real Salt Lake and Orlando were forced to go on the road, by the placement in the playoff race and respective to Western and Eastern Conference, what I like is that there's a carrot for making the playoffs, and that carrot is hosting a playoff game. And for those fans that have suffered through the elements, that have suffered through maybe dips and turns throughout the course of the season, you know, that idea that they get a game is important, because I think it kind of continues to showcase the atmosphere and the growth of Major League Soccer. Now, as you say that, I think we would all maybe like to see a tighter window that could end before the international break and just make sure that everything is nice and tidy. But it is the reality of what we're looking at. And I'd be really intrigued to see on the backside of the World Cup, with all the question marks surrounding what the future of Major League Soccer looks like, and even on the backside of the announcement of Lionel Messi extending his contract with Inter Miami and Major League Soccer. Remember, the September and October windows are not individual next year. They're now combined international window. So I'm going to be very interested to see how this looks, because the one thing I've always been really complimentary of Major League Soccer is how nimble they have allowed themselves to be with the constant creation of what our game looks like. And having been a part of it since 1997 as a player, having been to the first game at the Rose Bowl in 1996.
You're hanging on the fence. You're hanging on the fence outside trying to get a peek because you're going to get a ticket.
No, I got in. I was repping Cal State Fullerton. I think there were like 4 guys on the field that day between New York, New Jersey Metro Stars and the other LA team. But yeah, listen, I think what I've always been impressed with is Major League Soccer has always done its due diligence. And I think the intelligent decision makers have always tried their best to recognize that the product can get better. And they haven't been as staunch as maybe they could have been at times. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of how this looks. And again, as of right now in the Western Conference, no one's done LAFC any favors. But I feel like if I went back and really dug through the numbers, maybe a lot of people would feel the same way last year, but nobody had the ending that we saw with regards to lifting an MLS Cup trophy in 2024.
All very good points. It's a young league. It's a work in progress of the way they do things. I saw a comment here tack. It should be best of 3 for each of the rounds. That'd be a pretty juicy playoff. Maybe some people have thought make round 1 a single game. It's who knows. I would imagine next year it would look a little different. You mentioned the September-October window is going to be brought into one. The January USA camp has been jettisoned for next year. We're hearing maybe the MLS season starts mid-February, which is pretty early in the game, but they've got to squeeze in the schedule because they got this thing called the World Cup in summer. Some more comments here. Maybe Sonny will be there today talking about the Dodger game, game 3. We shall. Why not? Sonny's made the rounds with the Dodgers, with the Rams. I don't know if he's on the Chargers yet. I'm sure the Lakers and the Clippers are on the agenda as their season just started, and the LA Kings. We're a great sports town. No doubt about it. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Let's get into all of it. Speaking of Sonny, we start with the most pressing news today. And Son Heung-min has won the MLS Goal of the Year award. It was his first goal of his arrival against Dallas. That was back on August the 23rd, the free kick. And I got people talking. Some people maybe say, hey, I would say it's not the greatest goal of the year that we've seen in MLS. I think the Sonny love gets a bit of a rub here, but Lionel Messi, who didn't score many free kicks this year, didn't get it, but he could have given a Messi goal because it was Messi. So that's interesting. I don't think it was a great year of goals overall in MLS. The best goal I think we saw was Pedro de la Vega, but that was Leagues Cup. But it's great. I think this is great. Son Heung-min's not going to win Newcomer of the Year because he's only been here for, 9 games. That's going to be Andres Dreyer, but he wins something. I think it's a nice placeholder for what will come again in 2026.
Yeah, we do this thing where we try to pick best 11s and we try to play, pick all these awards, and we talk, goal of the year, I think, is subjective to a lot of people. The reality is it's a phenomenal goal. I mean, however you dice it, and the fact that it's his first MLS goal down in Dallas after starting in Chicago and then going to New England and then finally getting back in front of the fans at BMO Stadium against San Diego. This was one of those moments in time where it'll be etched into his memory. And for him, listen, he scored a lot of incredible goals, and he's had some incredible masterpieces in terms of goals that he's been a part of in the buildup of play, the pass before the pass, or the pass that led to a goal. And he's been on the end of some amazing finishes for both club and country. But I think the one thing that caught us maybe a little bit off guard when we're talking about domestic football, and I say this with all due respect from his time at Tottenham Hotspur, that with set pieces, this was a real standout goal, because I think what it did, Max, is it reminded people of within the collective how important of a player he is and how technically elite of a footballer he is. But I think in that moment, it kind of almost jogged everybody's memory to the forefront and said, like, damn, he is one of the most all-around technical footballers that we've seen in the modern game. And in the last 15 to 20 years, when you think about the production value that he's had, whether on the left-hand side or the right-hand side or off the shoulder, tucked in underneath, his combination play, left foot, right foot, all of those things in the run of play, it was almost like we needed that set-piece opportunity in that free kick in Dallas, where it's a 2-step lead, right foot, curling ball, up and over. It's got a bit of a knuckle. It's got the power and the placement, the accuracy. I always joke around that when it's that far up in the corner and my goal calls that, he's picked out the spider webs, he's killed the spiders, it's such a perfectly placed ball. And then just the image, like when you slow it down, you watch the replay as the goalkeeper is that full stretch and still can't get a finger to it. It's just one of those goals where, again, I know it's a very subjective nature of how we separate these goals, and we want to see bicycle kicks, and we want to see ball, 50-yard dimes, and we want to see all of these, chop in, chop out, and finishes. A free kick is special, man. And from that distance, up and over the wall with that accuracy, it was a phenomenal goal.
Wow, the way you described it, it sounds like a slam dunk for goal of the year. Spider webs, goalkeeper,
stretch keeper. Yeah.
I was like, wow.
There's always one of those, when you see that as a defender, when I gave up a stupid foul and all of a sudden it hits the back of the net, you're like, damn, idiot. So great finish from Sonny.
Well, I like what you said about it too, because it takes you back. It started it all, this phenomenon. We didn't know what this Son Heung-min immersion was going to look like, and that was like the beginning. And LAFC doesn't score a lot of set piece goals, so this was good to see. And they're not bad at it, but the set piece goals since Carlos Vela's departure haven't really been all that frequent. So that's good, but good for a variety of reasons. Tell us what you think. If there's a goal out there you thought was a little better, let us know. Let's get into some of the comments. Can't wait for the MLS final versus Miami, which would be in Miami at their park. Maybe they bring it up to Hard Rock at the big one. Wouldn't that be something? That would be the dream final. We would get to that. We'll get to what Inter Miami did because I think it's significant to what LAFC has done. Juan Vargas, Stunny, he wants to know, what is your Chipotle order?
My Chipotle order? Oh, let's see. I would do soft tacos, a little bit of brown rice. Let me see. Trying to think about which one I would go.
I do half the rice too.
Maybe a little spicy pork. Then you got to do corn. You got to do a little bit of guac, a little bit of cheese, and then you got to do red sauce on the top. And then you got to eat it there because if you wrap it up and take it home, it ends up breaking up.
Good advice. Good advice, everyone. I hope you're happy. Can't wait for the MLS playoffs from Heung-min. Yeah, they are underway. I like Kellen Acosta's goal from miles out, but that might have been last year. It was. I don't know if that one goal of the year. Last year had a lot of good goals. Juice 323, always a solid listener here. It was a banger. Son, he brings me happiness. So good. So I think people were happy. We have our Korean listeners coming in. And by the way, the Korean community tuning in large numbers for the re-air of this, but they're always welcome to watch it live. And this podcast is just growing. We're thrilled with the audience that you guys have provided. Bigger and better things, certainly for 2026. And we bring in the heavy hitters like Brian Dunseth. So like the video, subscribe to the channel. Son Heung-min, we'll talk more about him shortly. I wanted to mention late in the week, Ryan Hollingshead contract extension. This is a part of a bigger thing, which I think is really good for LAFC. As Steve Cherundolo in his final year, once this season ends, he will part ways, head to Germany, and then we'll see what it looks like for LAFC's new coach. But whoever it is, first is going to have to be on board with this current roster, so it can't be too much change, which I think is going to be baked into whoever this next coach is. I don't know anything, but he's got Ryan Hollingshead. I imagine it's a very club-friendly deal where he can come in and continue to mentor Artem Smolyakov. You got Nate Ordaz for a new deal. You got Sergi Palencia, new deal. You got Timothy Tillman, Son Heung-min, Denny Bouanga. They are locked up as well. This is rare because LAFC has had to change so much from year to year because of their success. But this is good. I love Ryan Hollingshead. You see all the stuff he does. Salt of the earth guy. He hasn't played as much as he did last year, but he still has a lot in his legs and a really handy guy that can play a couple positions. What did you think about that news?
Listen, I've been lucky enough to have called Ryan's games all the way back when he was an attacking winger at UCLA before he was drafted, covering the Pac-12 network. With Christian Mousy, actually. Mousy and I were calling the games up at UCLA. And I was always impressed with him. And I remember when he took kind of the year sabbatical and he decided personally to explore what his life looked like before he went to FC Dallas, I was impressed with the human being. Because a lot of times we judge these athletes based on the performance between the white lines once a week over the course of 90 minutes. And that's fair. That's the judgment, right? We very rarely take into account the man, the husband, the son, the father, the brother, the cousin, all those things that come into account, the teammate. And to see what the move was from FC Dallas a few years ago, to come over and to be so proficient with either foot, to be a guy that in Major League Soccer alone is somewhere around the 30, 31 games mark. That's just with MLS. That's not CONCACAF Champions Cup. That's not FIFA Club World Cup. That's not Leagues Cup, right? It's not even accounting for the playoffs yet. At 34 years of age, there's a couple things I think we need to take into account when talking about Ryan Hollingshead. Person, stature of human being, and the way he's respected inside that locker room, the culture that he's helped create. Because I think to your point, and when I joined this particular Inside LAFC podcast with you and Sarah, we were in the midst of a summer window where Olivier Giroud had just left, and there was a lot of consternation and a lot of maybe fatigue about the roster turnover. But in that nuance of a conversation, there was fear about who wasn't being replaced and how efficiently or quickly this roster was being rebuilt. Now, we all obviously feel much, much better with seeing the way that John Thornton and Steve Cherundolo and everyone involved at LAFC has evolved this roster. But to your point, with the players, Ordaz and Palencia, everybody associated, what I think that's important to talk about Ryan is that he's a leader amongst leaders. And you don't get that very often. Usually you have 2 or 3 guys that are quote unquote captain material. And I'm not suggesting he's not one of those guys. But you also have to have guys like he and Aaron that can be looked at as like the fabric and the soul and the accountability and setting. When I talk about culture, it's about setting standards each and every day. And there's players that are much more physically gifted than Ryan, and he'd be the first to put his hand up and acknowledge those players. But in real time, to have the career that he's had is nothing short of extraordinary. And I can tell you from someone, my career ended at 30 because of injury. But I remember in my late 20s, like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at training sessions, I had started to lose that competition factor. I was like, dude, it's Tuesday. Come on, man, it's Wednesday. Like, chill out. Like 18-year-old with his tail on fire, running around acting like it's a World Cup final. So to have that accountability of performance week in and week out and keep a guy like Smoliakov on the bench, I think really tells you all you need to know about how the hierarchy at LAFC views Ryan Hollingshead. And I think it's brilliant to keep him around. And to your point, there's players that always recognize at certain stages of their career where their trajectory lies. And Ryan is one of those guys that I don't think for a single second doesn't recognize that every day at this stage of a career is really a gift. So to have this opportunity, I don't think it's lost on him, nor us, nor anybody else, what his role, responsibility, and accountability looks like going forward. And I honestly, I struggle to see a world in which Ryan isn't immediately acclimated into some form of the organization going forward based on the experiences that he's had both on and off the field with the club.
He is a great MLS player too. And why not have depth? You mentioned having a couple of fullbacks. Maybe doesn't start every game, but he'll play a lot. Hopefully LAFC have another loaded year, which is probably the case when I say that. CONCACAF Champions Cup, fingers crossed. We'll get into that. This is Inside LAFC Podcast. We are live on LAFC, YouTube, Facebook, X, Twitter, Instagram. You can watch us anywhere on your laptop, on your phone, on your television. We are available. Brian Dunseth. I am Max Bretos. The Coug talking about Ryan, because I think this was an event I did with him at Strauss where I asked him when he went to bed, and Ryan said he went to bed at 9. And the Coug says, brought me a little leverage on the home front. Thanks, Max. I feel a little bit younger. There you go. I did not go to bed that early for the record, but different strokes for different folks.
I can co-sign that's a fact. You do not go to bed at 9 o'clock.
We can't doing what we do. We need goals by our midfield players and not rely on Sonny or Danny. I have a feeling that we're going to get a long-range goal because Austin it was in the Waymo part of me. Sarah corrected me. It wasn't the Strauss event. It was our Waymo shoot. Me and Ryan are connected at the hip, so we do a lot. And he said it came from Tom Brady, that Tom Brady went to 9. Thank you, Sarah, for that heads up. So anyway, I want to get back. I think we get a goal from long range against Austin, at least a couple close calls. We shall see, because Austin's going to let you have them. John, let's go black and gold. How are we feeling about game 2 in Austin? He's already looking towards game 2. We'll talk about that a little bit as we get into our preview. The way Dunny described the Son Heung-min goal, it's as if he played the game. There you go. And then someone mentioned about Sonny once won the Puskas Award. That goal, one of the best goals I ever saw, that was against Burnley, where he did the Maradona going through 70, 80 yards. And it just reminds you how many different ways he can score goals, our Sonny.
Yeah.
Marcus Tavernier's Olympico. Was that an MLS goal? Oh, man, you guys are all over the shop. Let's go. OG Nam. Excellent, excellent. And Hollingshead's mustache rides on. We will get to this, but hey, like the video. I know I say it a lot, but it really helps us get the message out. Let's preview this game Wednesday, round 1, game 1, BMO Stadium, LAFC, Austin FC. Go to LAFC.com. See, it's going to be an incredible event. So if you can get some tickets there. If not, you can watch it on MLS Season Pass on Apple TV. I believe that one's on Fox as well, so you have some options. But check it out on MLS Season Pass on Apple TV. Dunny and I will be on the call for game 2 in Austin. We have a little Texas two-step. We will get to the details. Let us preview Austin. I'll give you the little background here. Austin won both games this season, way back in March. That was, to me, a real low point for LAFC. It was an afternoon game. There was a bit of a malaise early in the season, and LAFC just couldn't get it going. A lot has changed since then. And then October the 12th, the penultimate game of the season, Owen Wolff off a corner kick in the 83rd minute, 1-0. LAFC rested a bunch of guys. Or they didn't rest, but that was the international break.
International break.
Sonny and Denny. It is we'll talk about what Austin FC does well, but just you've seen them a lot. We've called a lot of their games. How do you view this challenge for LAFC, and how do you think Austin's going to approach it?
Yeah, and I say this with the utmost respect. Austin was one of the least impressive teams that made the playoffs. When I say that, I would kind of categorize them in a very similar conversation to Minnesota United in the attacking phase of play, meaning that tactically, they like, Nico set his team up to where he's maximized the most positives that he has in the group, and he's minimized maybe the least effective aspects. And by saying that, whether we call it 3 or 5 in the back, it starts with being very sound defensively in low to mid block defending. You're going to play, whether it's Dubrsarski in that midfield, you're going to play Ilie maybe in the midfield alongside Danny Pereira. So it'll give you shuttling ability in possession, but it'll also give you, good functionality and closing down passing lanes in the central heart of the midfield. It'll be interesting to see when you're talking about in that attacking phase of play, specific to the front three, if you go with kind of the young San Diego State product and CJ Faudree, who's big, tall, lanky, strong, great presence in the air, or you thinking about maybe switching it up and going with Jaider Obrian, who came over from FC Dallas a couple of years ago. Bukhari on one side, Owen Wolff. I think Owen Wolff was just 2 days shy of being eligible for the U.S. Under-20 World Cup team that just participated.
It'd be a nice ad on that team.
Yeah, down in Chile. I think he is a future U.S. men's national team pool player. And I think had he had another year or two ahead of the World Cup that he could bed down into Mauricio Pochettino's group, I think people would be surprised at what his ceiling is. I think he's the most consistent, dynamic player on both sides of the ball. And I mean that with the utmost respect. But it'll be interesting to see for Austin who exactly is fit and healthy versus the team that we saw rolled out against San Jose. There's a way that I look at it. Every team has a bogey team in Major League Soccer. There's that one weird team that you come up against, whether at home or on the road, and you just can't figure them out, or they've maybe figured you out. The one thing I would say is that even though Austin FC beat LAFC both home and away this season, back in September, it's a different shape, it's a different team, it's a different group of players. And this last loss a couple of weeks ago was during the international window. So when you understand if you're, and we had the opportunity to talk to Nico Estevez on the backside of their 120th minute game-winning goal from CJ Faudree to put him in the U.S. Open Cup final at home after beating Minnesota United. There was this emotion, right? There was this feel. This was a momentum. And you and I were talking about in the pregame buildup a couple of weeks ago that you think about what 3 games in a row can do for a team. And that momentum becomes untouchable. But what happened with Austin FC is when they lost at home to Nashville SC and BJ Callahan, I think they started wobbling. And then they started picking up some injuries. So they beat LAFC during an international window. They get a timely goal. Abobasi missed it was really a horrific miss for Abobasi that would have completely changed the transition and probably put the game to bed. They would have been leading 1-0. They would have killed their confidence. But then they went into San Jose, and they got absolutely throttled in San Jose. When you talk about where was the goals that I had against San Jose, 65% possession for San Jose, 21 shots, 12 of which were on goal, and operating at a 65% possession. It was really one-way traffic to the point where you saw wholesale changes. And for Nico taking off Owen Wolff, taking off defenders and Djordjevic and Heinz Eich, Danny Pereira, he was trying to get a spark, trying to get a tune out of them, and they just didn't show up. So psychologically, LAFC is going to have the advantage heading into the match. I would imagine Nico tries all the bulletin board material of, hey, we've already beat him twice, we can do it again, all the rah-de-rah stuff. But I think the challenge is going to be the obvious, and that is how efficient can you be with your chances? And in a similar conversation to what we just had last week about the 2-2 draw at Colorado, LAFC is going to have to make sure that they minimize mistakes to these minuscule moments, because Austin obviously can hurt you. And they've made a season out of punishing teams when they've had least possession, least XG, least passes completed, least shots on goals, because they've stayed compact, and they've hit in transition moments. They've played for set pieces. They're big across the back line, and they played for corners. And so they figured out ways to beat teams, even when I would argue they weren't the best team on the field. And by the way, that's not a negative. That's a compliment to Nico and to Austin FC. So offensively, LAFC is going to carry the load of possession. They're going to have to manufacture moments. They're going to instinctually have to figure out in the game model how to move Austin FC defenders around. And I think with Denny and Sonny playing in such free roles, that this is going to be stories that we're going to be coming back to next week that are going to hit on Mark Delgado, that are going to hit on Tim Tillman, that's going to hit on Sergi Palencia, that's going to talk about substitutions on the bench. It's going to be these late arriving runs. It's going to be Sonny in possession, taking on 2 or 3 players and looking for these slip passes. It's going to be moments where Denny can get in the shadows and the channels and run and figure out a way to spread the teams apart. And then ultimately, and this is going to be the biggest, again, we talk about moments. How do you manufacture goal-scoring moments? How do you manufacture corner kicks? How do you cause havoc? At the end of the day, whoever, and this is the obvious one, Max, whoever is most proficient in their half chances, not just challenging for headers, not just winning the ball in the midfield, in those half chances, those moments where weight of the pass matters, finding the right foot matters, all of those little things, who's sharper, who's proactive versus reactive, that's ultimately going to set LAFC apart, or it's going to make for a big surprise for Austin at BMO Stadium.
That'll be Wednesday night at BMO Stadium. Just as a refresher, this is the best of 3. So game 1 Wednesday, game 2 Sunday in Austin, and then if necessary, game 3 the following Saturday, November the 8th. I know it's a long ways away. There'll be a big week in between, so it's a short break. It's a short turnaround from games 1 and 2, a full week. If necessary for game 3, that will be back at BMO Stadium.
Hey, by the way, Max, Austin FC history on YouTube is saying it's a front 3 of Wolf, Ozuni, and Bukhari. So that's what they're projecting. So the rotation, last game of the season, thinking about health, you're right. All of those history, you're right. All of those become a factor. So again, I also think and I've been on this side, and this, it may feel disrespectful, but it's not. There's something about playing the underdog. There's a weird momentum that you can start to create in the first 15, 20 minutes of a match. If you know that everybody is predicting LAFC, which is heavily going to be the case, that you can come out and just look at each other and be like, dude, why not us? Let's go kick the crap out of them. Let's figure out moments where we can get in their head. Let's see who we can manipulate. We saw it last night down in San Diego with Jim Rafori, right? Getting his second yellow. So within the nuance of the referees' decisions, the physical battles, the psychological elements, the done set 3, how can you get underneath someone else's skin that we always laugh about, to Austin FC's history on YouTube. It's the perfect example of us versus them. That becomes the definition of a good team, because we know who we aren't. So this is how we're going to play.
Discipline will be a big, big role in here, as you mentioned, what happened in San Diego. Inside LAFC podcast, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Have a sip of your favorite beverage if you need to, like Dunny just did. Some of the comments. Looking forward to Thursday from I Love You, H2, Wednesday in the U.S. So perhaps one of our Korean listeners. Great to have you here. Taku, very high scoring defender, talking about Ryan Hollingshead. Helio Sapo. Austin are so tough to break down. I'm worried about them. And then Ote follows up. I watched the Austin podcast. They think Austin FC will play for the play for penalties. We've got to find a way to score the first goal. I did a little deeper dive, and you can obviously react to this. What if we sit back from Austin? How will that not go to penalty kicks? That's an interesting. I don't think you can sit back. I think you come out flying in these opening 30 minutes, because Austin will sit back, and what they've done in the last few weeks, at least when I've been watching, second half, they'll start possessing a little more and they'll get after it. And also remember, Brandon Vasquez has been out all year, so they've had to adapt to some different components in the attack. They don't allow goals from counterattack. They're number one. They've allowed 1 goal off a counterattack. So LAFC's ideas of turning it over and going on a counterattack, which is something they do very well, might be an issue. So you would probably, I think, to really press them. And they don't attack very well off the counters either. They don't score a lot of goals there. So it could be a balance that I feel favors LAFC. They don't score a lot of goals, Austin FC, but they don't get a lot of corner kicks either, but they do get goals off corner kicks, as they did against LAFC back in early October in that 1-0 victory. So discipline certainly on, I mean, you got to hold your breath if you give up a cheap corner kick or set piece, because Owen Wolf, who can receive them, and whoever else takes them, they can be very good in those roles. But I think, Dunny, you go at them and try to make them uncomfortable. Let Danny and Sonny try and do their thing. But as you pointed out, find those alternative guys that could be open. They push back that when in that defensive end, where you will see some space between the midfield and the back four, where there could be an opportunity from a long range shot. I think you could be creative in your attack. But sitting back, I don't think is going to be the benefit for LAFC. They have the better attacking players. Man, an early goal would change it here. And by the way, we encourage you to listen to all those great podcasts that are from the clubs and the fans within the clubs. I know the Austin FC, they've seen a game plan with this, and we can defend and hopefully get that chance. They did it twice already this year. Yeah. I find it hard for them not to do it. But LAFC, this is where you do it. You win game 1, so you don't have to worry about the short turnover in game 2, and then see where it takes you there. But this is, I think, those first 30 minutes will be key. Be aggressive. Don't give up a cheap set piece, and make that team very uncomfortable as much as you can in that first half. I don't think there'll be a threat from a counterattack from them if you apply the right pressure.
Yeah, I think, you know, we're talking in broad strokes, right? I mean, we're trying to convey the most broad conversation, but again, it's about moments, and it's turnovers, and it's balance. And, you know, I could very easily say in an attacking phase of play, they play in a 3-4-2-1. And if Izuni is on top and Wolf and Bukhari are kind of either in underneath or giving width, Gallagher on one side, Dessler opposite, Dubrsarski is probably with Danny Pereira, which I would assume. But then you think off the bench, you got, when a fully healthy team, you got Taylor, Fodry, Obrian, Rubio, not necessarily obviously in that order. Got Sabovic. Who else are we missing in the back? Cascante, Spatak, Komanic. I mean, I
like that back. I mean, that back line is got some, you know, the oomph. And we know with Beto is a guy who can get on your skin. And Brendan Hines-Ikes just resuscitated his career there. And Brad Stuver, one of the better keepers in this league.
Yeah, I mean, and we haven't really talked about Stuver. And you know, when we have that second leg in Austin, it's going to be, we're going to just be hearing Stuver. Like,
that's what would worry me about this. If LAFC are applying shots and Stuver's having one of those stand on the head games,
which is capable of.
Very possible.
Yeah. And again, there's a couple data points, right? And I don't know if it's true that Rosendo Mendoza is going to be the referee this time around. From a referee standpoint, he'll do his research. He'll go back and watch the matchups. He'll go back to see if there's any flash points or touch points that have happened previous, just so he gets a better understanding of the personality of the competition. And again, is he dependent on how physical this game gets and the speed of play? Is he tight with the whistle? Does he set the tone so everyone kind of understands early what kind of game? Or does he allow the game to find its own rhythm? And in the midst of that, again, you have these moments. And that's why when people talk about margins in the playoffs, the margins are very, very slim. And usually we're talking about attacking phase of plays that have started on breakups or simple turnovers. And how quickly and how effectively can you get yourself out of trouble? Try to play through the initial press, because there's always a repress that happens with both of these teams. It's been there all season long. There's a sense of urgency to try to get back the ball as quickly as possible. And again, they're going to understand that their blocks are going to have to be tight. So kind of that idea, that balance, you know, ball side left, ball side right, you know, pinching of opposite midfielders, tracking of runs. You know, we talk about speed, we talk about athleticism, you know, the player profile. Who has the intelligence to anticipate and recognize that a moment can kind of happen out of nowhere? All of these things, as much as we want to talk about tactics and we want to talk about shape and how great teams are, you know, over the course of the season, it doesn't matter. And it's a different conversation when it gets to the playoffs, because there's a different psychology, there's a different urgency, there's a different pressure that's applied at this stage of the year.
Inside LAFC podcast, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Juan saying, I'm bringing a pillow and a sleep mask to BMO for 90 minutes of Nico ball. Austin will sit deep and lock things up defensively, just like Atlanta did. I think the Atlanta playbook almost paid off. It certainly did. Someone dropping the line here. Austin plus 620, LAFC minus 240, which means LAFC is a big favorite. Let's ask you this one. Who has the advantage in pens, Lloris or Stuver? I would say Stuver. Lloris does a lot of things well. I don't think penalties are at the top of his list, but I wouldn't underestimate him either.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about experience, it's obviously Hugo Lloris. But if you talk about size, it's obviously Stuver. So again, I was always. This sounds weird, but I was always more nervous because I love taking penalties. I was always more nervous with the smaller goalkeepers for some reason, because I think in my head, I always felt like they had a little bit more cat-like agility, where they had a little bit more of a bounce and a spring. Whereas for the big goalkeepers, as long as they had the reach, right? So I was constantly thinking about the placement. And I think there's something really intimidating, and I don't care what level of soccer or football you played, but I think anytime someone could get up and start banging on the crossbar, that always made me a little bit more nervous. So I was like, dude,
that's really nice.
Giant.
That's really interesting to hear. To hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, well, like because goalkeepers are psychopaths, right? Like they go over and they kick the posts, and like they put their head against the post, and like they start talking to themselves, and like next thing you know, they're like. And I know the laws of the game have really minimized that, but like touching the posts and making themselves like, and then you don't know if there's a mime or, someone's pulling something out of their mouth like we saw a few years ago up in Vancouver. But I mean, it's tough not to go with the experience that Hugo Lloris has had both domestically and international. But I think Stuver's been an unbelievable story for Major League Soccer about the path less traveled and the arc of, what's the right word for this?
Arc of the diver?
What the arc of his career, and what an iconic presence, both on and off the field, he's become for the city of Austin.
You're dropping in Nahuel Guzman when he pulled out the serpentine. And if LAFC's faced him twice, so they can be ready.
My favorite goalkeeper in CONCACAF.
Yeah, the time might be running short for him. Calling it now, I feel a Mathieu scoring a banger. I feel in midfield, I think there's going to be opportunities. Someone's going to maybe let one go, and we'll see. Here's a question from Joe, and I think this is worth tackling here. Inside LAFC podcast, like the video, subscribe. The shape of the team often changes based on time and situation. But Dunning and Max, with 2 X's, what do you feel is LAFC's best lineup and shape will work best for Austin? We know it's an adaptable 11 where it can go back 5, back 4. I would imagine that back 5 has worked. So the Segura, Tafari, Porteous, Sergi without a doubt. I think Smoliakov, because you want a little more go forward than Ryan here, even though Ryan started the last game. And then the big question to me, Dunny, who do you play with? You play the 2 up there with Sonny and Denny Bouanga. Do you bring in if Nate or Daz is healthy, maybe he's an option here because he can get vertical.
You talking about starting 11?
Yeah, I would think it's going to be Tillman.
No, he's not starting.
It'll be. I don't think so either. But I think Tillman there, and then you go with the other 3 is Chouanier and Delgado without question. You may have a room for another guy, but
no, I think if they're healthy, if they are healthy at this stage of the season and nothing's happened this week, I think they start the same that they started in Colorado. The recent goal, back 3, left to right, Segura, Tafari, Porteous. Hollingshead on one side, Palencia opposite. Chouanier sitting in more of that like 6, Igor Jesus. Although Jailson did start.
I think, Jailson may play a role here.
Either way, I'd feel comfortable.
As a center back, potentially.
I'd be comfortable with both of them in that holding position. Tillman, Delgado in that midfield, and then Sonny and Denny. But I also think it's one thing that we probably haven't pointed out enough is with the switch to this system, it's really sidelined David Martinez because in this system, he doesn't have the same type of role. But now you can, again, when you played the front three, David Martinez or Ordaz were going to be on that right-hand side before the squad continued to build itself out from Under and how am I forgetting his name? Went back to Club America.
Chaviro Del Rosen.
Del Rosen. He was constantly fighting for minutes over on that right-hand side. So, yeah, I mean, you're thinking Jailson, Morin, Ordaz, Ebobisi, Smoliakov, David Martinez, Frankie Amaya, Ryan Raposo. Those are kind of the subs that I would imagine that Steve Cherundolo is going to look down to his left and start thinking about at some point, whether at halftime or the 60th minute mark, depending on what the game gives you. But I also think that it's a statement on either way. For LAFC, the pressure is to win at home, win comfortably, check all the boxes visually, that you had possession, creation of chances, the style, the XG, all of those things. For Austin, they have one order of business in that first 45 minutes. Don't concede. I don't care how bad it looks. I don't care how much possession they have. If you are an Austin FC fan, a coach, or a player, you want your team to be so fundamentally sound defensively that at a bare minimum, you can get in the halftime break without conceding. Because there's a weird psychological thing that starts to happen. That momentum, that self-belief, you start looking over your shoulder at each other, even the guys that you don't trust, even the guys that you think are the weakest link in the group. You start to feel like, okay, he's on today. I can feel a little bit more comfortable. Maybe I don't have to cover as much ground. Now let's see what we can do getting forward. Now let's see what we can create. Let's play a little bit more direct. Let's test them out. Let's see if they start to panic because they're the ones that are supposed to be having that pressure. So all of these things, and listen, I'm not trying to play up one side or downplay another side. I just this is what happens when you're talking about the psychology of matches like this.
Inside LAFC podcast. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. We are on every Monday, 12:30 Pacific time on LAFC YouTube, Facebook, now Instagram and Twitter, so you can tune us anywhere in the office, at home, at the cabana, wherever you are. Hey, Kwan Stangl from Korea. Hello. Thank you for your hard work. I know that was directed at Dunny, but I'll take it as well. But I appreciate it. Guitar Man, I hope we wait, I'm reading the wrong one from him. Guitar Man, well, first of all, Chris, I want my first live soccer game to be in LA with the black and gold. I refuse to go to any other soccer game until then. Dakug, who's a great advertiser for LA tourism, please do come to LA. A visit to BMO for a home match is an experience you have to have. The culture, the atmosphere is exceptional. Yes, do an LA trip. Come to BMO Stadium. Go to Disney or Universal. Have some fine dining in Koreatown, one of the great centers for fine dining in the world. That's not my words. That's Anthony Bourdain, the late, great Anthony Bourdain said that. So Sonny is a very experienced player. He will set up Wednesday's game. If you have a lot of people concerned about the officiating, but I think LAFC will be okay. Yes, as ATX FC, our Austin listener, Rosendo Mendoza will be officiating the game. Jay Shawnee, Son's coaching is underrated. All the youngsters at Spurs like Brennan Johnson, Bergvall, Mikey Moore, all have said that. They've learned so much from him. I think that effect is having at LAFC as well. And think about Son too. The international break, he did play on decision day, but now a good 10 days to really recharge the battery, get the jet lag out of the system. It'll be good. Craig, LAFC must play their own game. Simple as that. Just control and show that they're better. Is it as simple as that, Dunny?
I mean, that's a good starting point, but no, it's not as simple as that. And again, without us having the ability to show kind of highlights and break down packages like this, we're speaking in broader terms. But what I'm trying to do is kind of show these bullet points of nuance of conversations about these are the margins, and these are very, very fine margins. So again, I think what Steve Cherundolo has shown with the switch to this formation is that he feels like tactically this gets the best out of the group, both offensively and defensively. And as much as he'll be concerned about the bullet points of what Austin FC does well, both with and without the ball, this is going to be more about what his group is capable of doing. And again, you and I were on decision day, keeping an eye on the game in Colorado. And we saw some uncharacteristic mistakes defensively that were being made across the back line with weight of passing lanes being cut down, Hugo getting caught with the ball at his feet, some mistakes with the lack of marking, people slipping, all of these things. Those are the margins that are going to separate, going through, winning a game, being pushed to penalties, like we saw against, Philadelphia and Chicago the other night, and walking away with a win and momentum behind you, and having to change. By the way, we haven't even talked about, we don't know potentially if there's a crazy tweak or a nuanced surprise that we're seeing from either of these managers, just to see if they can catch one another off guard. Because there's always, there's ego involved, right? And for both of these managers and these coaching staffs, they're looking for any simple thing that they can really put a magnifying glass on and say, hey, can we get the most out of this? Can we get the best out of this? And it could be something straight off the training ground with a set piece or, corner or a free kick. Or it could be something a little bit more malicious and devious. So we'll find out, who's the smart one and we always joke around with managers, right? Man, you really got that one right. Man, you really got that one wrong. And it's usually with starting 11s and substitutions, but somewhere in there is a deeper conversation that has a meaningful either success or failure rate over the course of 90 minutes.
Inside LAFC podcast. We're in the final stretch here. We're going to talk a little bit about the playoffs at large. Messi, LAFC. Yo, what's up, guys? Good to see you. I can't wait for this game. Let's go, LAFC. Austin FC are getting their revenge from Tio Benny. Must be an Austin FC fan. He's talking about 2022, where LAFC beat Austin FC, I assume he is, to make MLS Cup. So there we go. A lot of good stuff. A lot of people are giving their predictions of the score, and I've seen 3-0 for LAFC. Someone asked who plays on the right wing. I don't think it's the right wing, but it's going to probably be Tillman coming up that right side. To the cup game, right? Yeah. Not Martinez, not Ordaz. They'll be available on the bench, but a strong bench. Let's talk about the Audi MLS Cup playoffs. Some games already in the books. Starting Friday, Inter Miami winning, Philadelphia Union, the Supporter Shield winning, squeaking by Chicago in penalties, and then Vancouver demolishing of FC Dallas. That was really impressive. That could be LAFC's next opponent if LAFC advance and Vancouver finish the job Saturday in Dallas. And then San Diego for the 35K. So the take, I love an upset, Dunny. I love an upset. We saw that with the Red Bulls as the 7th seed. But this year, I want to see chalk, meaning higher seeds advance. Some people already mentioned the possible Inter Miami LAFC final. It's possible. Yeah. The reality is San Diego and Vancouver both look really, really good. Vancouver in particular, which would be a conference semi if LAFC advance. But Philadelphia, the Supporter Shield, I want to see the top 4 and see those conference semis would be tremendous. Also, if the higher seeds advance, it helps LAFC's chances, if they don't win MLS Cup, it's a big if, to make the CONCACAF Champions Cup. I think if Vancouver won it, I believe the second team from the Canadian Cup makes it, so that doesn't help LAFC. But if Inter, Philly, Cincy, San Diego win it, and it's not LAFC, then they will get that spot. That's a long way off the road. But what were your reactions to what we saw in the opening weekend of the MLS Cup playoffs?
Yeah, and by the way, since you brought New York Red Bull up, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that Sandro Schwartz was relieved of his duties today, as was Chris Armas out in Colorado. So, by the way, my handy-dandy notes right here. You've got Montreal, Donadell is confirmed, but Sporting Kansas City's open, St. Louis is open, New England Revolution open, Atlanta open, now Colorado, New York Red Bulls, and LAFC at the end of the year. Some amazing jobs available with a bunch of different directions that
you kind of be looking for work if you're a good coach in MLS.
Yeah, or a very good assistant coach. For me, listen, I think the star of the show was Lionel Messi down in Miami for the game against Nashville. The Olay in the midfield when then he chops through 2 players, opens up his hips, and smacks one. His cause and effect is extraordinary. Philly got a lot tighter. I think what Philly showed was a crack, and that crack could be a significant crack as these playoffs go on, because Chicago, they pushed, they pulled, they prodded, and they almost came away with a big surprise out in Philadelphia. The earlier game, Vancouver walloped FC Dallas, walloped them. FC Dallas did not show up, to the point where Eric Quill, afterwards, FC Dallas head coach, acknowledged that they didn't show up. And that was a devastating game not to show up. So you and I will be on that call next weekend, FC Dallas Vancouver in the second leg. And then the San Diego game, I just think San Diego, top to bottom, is a better team. Even with the Chucky Lozano drama that's been surrounding them for the better part of the last 3 weeks, San Diego is probably, when you talk about pound for pound, quality of player, background of player, star power of player, in a very similar conversation to the Philadelphia Union, which obviously 2 of the top teams in the respective conferences. So far it's played out as expected. I think hell is real derby tonight with Cincinnati Columbus kicking off in a couple hours time is going to be a real fun one to watch. But then you still got to figure out whether you're talking about Charlotte, NYCFC, Minnesota United against Seattle, what those matches look like, because those become kind of a toss-ups. I think, and by the way, I think Seattle, Minnesota United is going to be a very similar conversation for how Brian Smetzer and Seattle sets up to play Eric Ramsey and Minnesota United up in Seattle in a week's time, because I think it's going to look very similar tactically to how Nico Estevez and Austin FC are going to set up at BMO Stadium against LAFC.
Make sure you tune into those games. MLS Season Pass on Apple TV. Doubleheader tonight. You got Cincinnati, Columbus, and then you'll have that Minnesota-Seattle game. Kelvin Yeboah back. Games on Tuesday, and then the big game on Wednesday. Come out to BMO Stadium or watch it on MLS Season Pass on Apple TV. We're thrilled to have you guys. We'll be back Monday. Dunny, we'll have to do 2 games to recap 2 games, the Wednesday and the Sunday game. So next Monday is going to be a fun, loaded show.
It's going to be tight. We're going to be pressed. We're going to be flying back from Austin, so hopefully no delays.
Hopefully I won't have those big salt deposits in my cheeks from eating too much barbecue, but it's very possible.
Like a chipmunk.
I see the comments coming in. We will try and get to them now, but we're gonna call it a day for here. Again, this is Inside LAFC Podcast. Like the video, hit the thumb, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate your support. We'll be here every Monday. We'll be back here Monday, 12:30 Pacific time, 4:30 Tuesday morning in Korea. See you all again. Until then, let's go black and gold.